Hi everyone, happy Sunday. So I realized I was going to do a different color in chat today, and so I decided to pick a page from Cute and Lovely. This is printed under Jade Zimmer, but this is Alexandra Franzisa's work. I'm using one of the Color Cube palettes, palette 293. Here I'm showing quickly the main markers from the palette and then some extras. I also throw in a blue-green, I think, along the way. Like I said, in the description, I will have a list of all the markers and pencils used. I guess this could technically kind of be a color along if you want it to be. I'll try to make it as detailed as I can. Here, I started to use the marker on the background. Then I stopped because I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to do marker on the background or if I wanted to do pastel. And at this point, I knew I was going to lay down a layer of marker. And I knew I'd want to do more than that. But past that point, I wasn't sure if I wanted to use my pastel pencils, if I wanted to use colored pencils, if I wanted to come in and do a darker marker outline like I usually tend to do. That's kind of my go-to, but I don't know. This one I wanted to do something a little different, a little fancy, because I realized I had said a few weeks ago I was going to do this specific color in chat. So, turns out I end up going really luxurious with this one using my Copic markers, with the exception of a Magic Box color because I didn't have the Copic version for the swatch. And I think, yeah, a couple Magic Box markers, and then I end up using my new Luminance pencils, including one of the ones out of the set I showed y'all yesterday in my supply haul for the shading, and I think it turns out pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I'm going to put down in the description what I used for each part, and that way if you guys want to do something similar, or if you like that palette and want to use it in something else, then that can at least give you an idea of, some of the markers and stuff. Like, you may not use Copics, but if you do have Copics, then you can, compare those swatches to other markers you have and such. Same with the pencils. Just wanted to be fancy, and I mean, what's the point of spending all this money on really expensive art supplies, any art supply, I guess, if you're not going to use it? So that was kind of my concept today. Here I'm adding in a blue-gray from the Magic Box set because I don't have blue-grays yet in my Copics. I have Copic sets, Copic Sketch, the brush marker tips in as A and B. And probably, depending on how tax season goes, I might end up getting the next set here in a couple months. We shall see. I think there's two more. I think. At least two more. So. But I had a lot of fun with this picture. Actually had fun doing the pencil shading. The background got a little tedious, but I didn't want to just leave it. So I ended up doing marker on the background with some pencil shading. And it looks a little sloppy at the end, but honestly, I like it, and I didn't have a ton of patience for it, so I wasn't going to sit here and spend 2 or 3 hours just working on that background, though it still took a significant amount of time. So I made it work for me. And yeah, so the main thing I wanted to talk about in this color in chat and what the idea I'd come up with. So today, I think it's today, or was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Now it was yesterday because it was a Saturday. Was mine and my husband, whose name's Brent, our dating anniversary. So 11 years ago, I think it's 11. We went on our very first date. And so I thought it would be cute because I hadn't really done like a Valentine's Day type picture this month. We didn't, with recent events, we hadn't really celebrated either one. Like, I know like our wedding anniversary is in May, and that's probably the main one, but like we're not big Valentine's Day people, and recent events and just sick cats and me stressing about everything has made it hard to really set up any time for us to do like a date night or anything. So hopefully maybe those can happen, one of those can happen in March. I'm hoping, since we are running towards the end of February. But I thought it would be cute to talk about how my husband and I met, and try to have a little more positive um, uh, chat here. If I have time at the end, I'll give you guys some updates. Not we're stable, but it's worrisome. I'll give you guys some updates at the end about the cats. But for now, I would really like for us to. I felt so down and so negative lately. I just thought it'd be cool talking about something fun, which also involves talking, I guess, if I want to, about things across the board. So anyway, so for those of you who don't know, I've been married 3 times. I guess we'll start out with this. Get the real popcorn drama esque part of it out of the way. Um, I've been married 3 times, and I had met my first husband in college, and that he was a nice guy. Nothing. What happened was, like, I was just going out in the world. I was very much not an independent person, and he was a year older than me, and he seemed I guess worldly to me in that regard. In that, I joke and say I went from my parents taking care of me to my first husband taking care of me, because I thought that was what you do. I thought that was like the thing. Is my parents had planned my future out for me. I was going to college. There was never any question about that. And trust me, one summer working where my dad worked, in at Donley in the bindery, was enough for me to definitely encourage me to go to college, because that was like the thing back then, right? I graduated in 99, and that was millennials were kind of, we're on the edge of Gen X and millennial, but we're probably more millennial-ish. Here I end up, by the way, going back over with a dark suntan because I didn't think that color was dark enough from the belly and the face color. So if you're wondering what I was doing there. Um, I think I end up using the light suntan and dark suntan on the chipmunks, though now, my Copic swatch sheet, they're called something different. So I don't know if they've renamed them, or maybe they've renamed them since. I don't know. But anyway, so it was like I was under this impression that, you go to college, you graduate, you get a good paying job, you get married, you have kids, you do the 2.5 kids with a white picket fence and a dog, and I went the complete opposite direction. But I was following along that plan splendidly in college, right? Like I was dating my first husband for quite a long time. Then we got engaged after a couple years, stayed engaged for a couple years, and then got married, and I was going right along with that plan, right? And we were to the point I was having trouble getting pregnant, and we were trying a couple months of fertility meds, and that was really, I think, the turning point for me. Oh, here, by the way, I started to use that duck blue again on the shirt, and I'm like, that's too matchy-matchy with her, so I'm trying to cover it up. I come in with a copper that covers up that dark teal color here in a minute, and takes care of that. So, but it was right about that time that I started having a bit of a crisis, because I was about 22 or 23. I graduated, started a job that I was not ready for. They really need somebody with experience, and I was just fresh out of college, and it was too much. It was overwhelming. I was miserable, and I quit after about 6 months. I can't remember. Um, and so there for a while, I kind of became a stay-at-home wife. And that's honestly exactly what my first husband wanted. Was he wanted a stay-at-home wife with kids. He wanted to be the breadwinner. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what both um, spouses want in a relationship, right? Like, I'm not dissing that at all. That was my mom worked a lot when I was a kid, and when she got older and she had my brother, it got to the point that she stayed home with my brother. And other than doing some part-time work just because she was bored, like, for the most part, she stayed a homemaker the rest of her life. And my parents' relationship is amazing. They've been married over 40 years, and um, I they just really absolutely adore each other, and it worked. You know what? It worked for them. It worked for them. So, not dissing that at all, but again, I was going along with a plan, and the plan was how I was to get security and live a better. My parents wanted a better life for me, that I didn't wind up um, working myself to death in um, like a factory type job. And again, nothing wrong with that, but my parents didn't want that for me. They wanted me to have more, like, we were definitely middle class, like maybe not even Homer Simpson level income, but like we were definitely, middle class. Struggled a bit here and there, with like big expensive things or anything. Definitely didn't have any like a lot of name brand clothes or anything growing up. So, um, definitely that working class level. And my parents just wanted me to have a more secure life. And especially because right around then was the printing industry was really starting to struggle because of the internet and digital books and stuff like that. So, like, my dad could see the writing on the wall, knew that manufacturing was going to do nothing but, oh, here we are already to the Luminance pencils, by the way. Again, I have all these in the description. But, and this definitely, as you can see in the video, takes the bulk of the video. So, I've never used the Luminance pencils before. This is my first time. And I know some of you probably are like, she's using expensive markers and expensive pencils on Amazon paper, blah, 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 blah. You can think, I guess, judge me all you want, but again, what's the point of having these if I'm not going to use them? And I would rather give them a trial run, not the Copics, of course, I'm used to those, but I would like to give pencils a trial run before I really use them on my expensive books. And so I think trying them out on an Amazon page is just fine. These did great. They didn't, so they blended similar to Prismacolors, but they didn't smear or leave as many crumbs as Prismacolor. Like, I gotta say, these might become my favorite pencils, seriously, because they blended so well even on the Amazon paper, in my opinion. Not the best as they would on smooth paper, but far better than I anticipated they would. So, anyway, go back around here. So right about the time that I was trying, so I have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. TMI, I do not have regular monthly cycles of my own. At the time, I was on birth control pills to help create a monthly cycle, but come to find out, nothing was the major thing that needs to happen for like pregnancy to happen on my end was not happening each month. It was like a misfire each month. And so the fertility meds, I think it was Clomid maybe, were supposed to help kick that off, and we were still working on the dosage on that. And it was right about that time, like, I had an epiphany, and it was that, you know what, I don't really want kids. Like, I was going along to get along. Like, I just was like, this is what you do. Um, and then I kind of was like, you know what? Part of me was doing it because I felt abnormal already, because I was like, I'm not having a regular monthly cycle like most women. Made me feel, I guess, less feminine, made me feel like there was something wrong with me. And so, but from that, it started going, now, do I really want to do this? Because do I really want kids, or am I doing this because this is the plan, like the thing I'm supposed to do? And that really kicked it off for me, was just the sudden realization that I don't know if I want kids, and I don't want to bring a kid in this world and have something go wrong and just not really be excited about it, right? And then have a kid to raise for the rest of my life, at least one. And so that opened up a whole lot of, because like I said, I was kind of doing the housewife thing under my husband's, not under my husband's thumb, but like he controlled the finances, I just really had never had any independence in my 20s. And I started to realize that I should have. And I started questioning everything. And I was like, am I in this marriage because I want to be, and because this is what I want? Because I know what he wants, and he wants the picket fence plan. And I know what my parents want. They want the picket fence plan. What do I want? And that led to some real acting out on my part. Like, I wanted to move back closer to home. I came back to Tennessee. I was living in Owensboro, Kentucky at the time. I convinced, and I really, like, I should have already made that decision, but I was still in the midst of it when we moved down here. Got, this real nice fancy house, and I was miserable. And so I reconnected with a friend from high school. We started going to karaoke on Thursday nights just to get me out of the house. It just led to a lot of crazy acting out type behavior. And it just all culminated into like a New Year's Eve one year around, I don't know, 2005, 2006, where I just woke up and it was like New Year's Day, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And so I just was like, I want a divorce. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through in my life. My parents didn't understand. They thought everything was fine, and I was with a good man that was making good money, and I was secure, and they didn't understand. And so there for a while, I couldn't even like come back to live with my parents. I was essentially sleeping on my friend's couch for a couple weeks with like some clothes in the car. And my cats, the three I had at the time, had to stay with my soon to be ex, just because I had nowhere to take them. It was very hard. I had a lot of pressure on me not to do that, and I was already meeting new people at karaoke, and like I said, just I finally made the break. I got my own apartment. I got a job. I was only making like $9 an hour. And was starting to finally get some independence and be on my own. And I hated it for my first husband, because what he wanted wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I wanted. And I feel guilty because I should have realized that a lot sooner and not put him through that. And he genuinely loved and cared about me, and it hurt him a lot. So I always felt bad about that. But things worked out for him. He went on, he got married a second time, ended up having 2 kids. He lives in Franklin, Tennessee now, which is a pretty well-to-do area outside of Nashville. He's got his picket he's got his picket fence life. And I'm happy for him. I genuinely am. Because, he still got what, he wanted. And so I'm just glad he could find that. I genuinely wish the best for him. Meanwhile, I was trying to be independent, and I should have just been independent. I should have just stayed single. But you know how things happen, and I was vulnerable. I really should have been doing therapy at the time, but I could not afford therapy. There's no way. And in the midst of all that, through a friend of a friend and whatnot, I met my second husband. And he was the complete opposite of my first husband. He um, he was like, I mean, even physically looked very different. He was like 6'2". He had long red hair. Yes, he was a redhead. That should nothing against redheads, but but he was really into music, and he was very, very live his own life kind of person, not a secure person in any way. And I guess I embraced that because I thought, oh, he's the complete opposite. That must be what I need. And yeah, that led to a pretty rough 4 years of my life where I did get married for a second time, and went through quite a period of verbal abuse. Um, never, never turned physical though. I'm surprised it didn't, to be honest, but I think he knew exactly how far to push me and knew that I wouldn't have stood for that. Like, there would have been the joke of a cast iron pan and getting carted off to jail. Like, that seriously would have been me, because the one time I got in a fight in my life, I blacked out and started hitting back, and next thing I know, somebody was pulling me off that person. So and he heard that story, and I think in his mind he was like, okay, so this, there's a line that I can manipulate. I mean, verbal abuse, gaslighting, everything manipulative thing you could think in the book. He was a narcissist, and that is probably the kindest thing I could say. um, but he knew, I mean, he knew I was vulnerable, and I hadn't had the time to really become secure and independent myself and know what I wanted. And he knew that, and knew that he could ride that gravy train for a while. And so I had a stepson for a while. He was 3 when I met him, and he had quite a few medical issues, and very, very difficult life for him. He turned out to be on the spectrum, and he had ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder. He went through therapy, he went through medication, and the only reason he went through those things is because I encouraged it. That was the one thing. I fought a lot for him to get looked at and seen, and so hopefully I was able to help him in his life, even in that brief period of time I was there. So anyway, it was a tough period. He worked for a while. He got laid off. Then wouldn't go looking. And every time I brought it up, I didn't know what it's like to work in a factory, because I'd worked in cushy office jobs my whole life. And you can probably hear me rolling my eyes right now, because hello, that's exactly what I grew up with. And I did even work a factory job for a brief amount of time, so I know full well what it's like. And it was gaslighting. And it got so bad at one point that I went and found a therapist. And the reason I found the therapist is because I thought I was so screwed up in the head that I needed to do something, or I was going to have my second divorce. Like, I seriously thought there was something wrong with me. He had me so we would get in the fights, and it would turn it like I would start out with legitimate concerns, and 2 hours later it's all in my head. I'm imagining everything. It's there's something wrong with me, that I brought this up and it's a problem, and like we would never get back to the original issue. And those of you that have been in those types of situations before are probably nodding your head because you know how it is, and you know how it goes. And I tell you, some of the stuff when I started journaling back then, some of the stuff I said about myself was just horrific. Like, nobody should ever feel that way about themselves. And if your spouse feels that way and you're not doing anything to change that, then, and in fact, if you are contributing to that, then you are a piece of human garbage. But I went to therapy thinking, again, sorry, I'm coloring a little off camera here, but thinking it was all my fault. But that was the best thing I could have done, because I worked through some trauma that had happened to me as a kid. I spent like 2 years in therapy working on everything and started getting independent, started finally figuring out what I wanted, and sticking up for myself, and just finally growing up, basically. And I was almost 30, so and I had to take on the bills and the financial stuff. We were always in a financial bind because of various things, and it was somehow always my fault. And who cares if bills don't get paid, apparently. um I don't know why anybody would adopt that mentality, but we were solely like struggling. Like, had we continued that way, it like we were racking up credit card debt and stuff like that. Like, it was not going well. And I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. And that happened because of therapy, and I decided, hey, I want to go be a teacher. Well, right about this time, we started getting into more and more fights, and I started sticking up for myself, and I started leaving the room when he started getting aggressive, and when he started to gaslight, like, I would stop it in his tracks. And it's like he knew the fun ride was coming to an end. And the irony was, I had went in trying to avoid a divorce, and really truly after all of that, I was seeing that it had things continued the way they were, I would have wanted a divorce, and it would have been nasty, and just, yeah, it'd been tough. However, he jumped the gun and decided, when he took a seasonal job, that he was going to go find somebody a little younger and fresher, and I guess naive enough for him. And I found that out 2 days before Christmas that year. And on Christmas Day, I had a cat pass away. Like, that was the worst holiday of my life. It was just, yeah. So, confronted him, turned into and I was right at the end of my therapy. Like, I was finally like, hey, I can't. And I will flat out sit here and say, I am not saying that none of the problems in that marriage were my fault. Like, I'm not saying that. When I was going through therapy, my therapist actually had my husband come to the office, and she explained to him thoroughly, look, she is going to go through a lot of raw emotions, stuff from her childhood that she has, stuffed down and bottled up for 30 years is going to come up, or 25 years or whatever, and she's going to have to be selfish for a bit. And are you okay with that? Like, I asked him numerous times. My therapist was making sure he understood what the process was going to be like numerous times. And of course he was like, oh yeah, no problem. No, that turned into a weapon to use against me, that I was never there for him, that I never cared, and I was selfish. And I had spent all that time doing exactly what. And the thing is, if he couldn't handle it, like, he should have spoke up. And it's okay if he couldn't handle it. Like, some people can't, and that's fine. But, like, own up to it. Don't just sit there and then turn it into a weapon against me when you said, sure, I understand, and then you got resentful. Like that's a you emotion. Had you communicated more, had you talked more about it, maybe I could have worked on some stuff. So again, I was not completely innocent in that regard. However, like at the end of that 2 years, I felt like I was ready, right? I was finally getting to the point that I could really just be who I needed to be and be there for him and be there for my stepson and stuff. And then come to find out he was going after a girl 10 years younger than us. So I thankfully, at first was all like, well, maybe we could just separate or something. Like it was just really, I was trying to hold on. And he was already ready to go. I told him he couldn't talk to her in the house when I was in the house. Actually, he couldn't talk to her in the house anyway, but on the cell phone. And I remember one night I heard him upstairs talking and figured out he was having a nice risque conversation with her while I was downstairs. Because, of course, we were sleeping in separate rooms at the time. And I sat there at the stairs, and one of the cats went in the room, and he's like, oh, hold on a minute, because he heard something, and it was a cat. And he come out that door and looked at me, and I'm sitting on the steps, and I just looked up at him. I said, we need to talk. And that was the moment I thankfully was like, I'm worth more than this. This is ridiculous. And so I laid it out. I said, this is no longer your decision. This is my decision. And we're done. I refuse to be second best. And I'm not going to put up with it. So we're done. And no more talk of separation and stuff like that, And stood up for myself, and it felt good. And it went relatively okay, the divorce process. I still wasn't, still was a little vulnerable, so I had to be real careful. The biggest problem was my stepson, because he was on the spectrum and stuff. Routine was really important to him. And the fact was, upheaval was happening. I tried, y'all. This happened at Christmas. I tried to make it to May with him and my stepson living in the house, because he would have to move back in with his grandparents, my ex, and they lived in a different school district. So I wanted my stepson to be able to finish out his school year, at least at this one, until maybe my ex could find alternate living arrangements and keep him in the same district. By February, my hair was falling out. I was missing numerous days at work. I was just coming apart at the seams. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle him. They'd be there all week. We'd basically ignore each other. They'd be gone all weekend. And funniest story, love telling this story. I had a cat, Tiger, back then. And one weekend they came home, and I had this at this point I had 11 cats on top of all this, and of course all the cats were staying with me because I was keeping the house, and I was not brooking any argument about that. Besides, I was the only one working at the time, and I was trying to do school on top of this. Like, it was a nightmare. And I look back, I just don't know how I survived all that, I'll be honest with you. Um, and uh, Tiger, he never, I didn't have a lot of problems with the cat spraying usually, but see, Tiger was very obnoxious and very territorial. And usually, if another cat was being added to the house, he was the one that was going to be dramatic about it. Well, we hadn't added anybody new recently, and things were just plugging along fine. I had a quiet weekend, everything was fine. And then him and my stepson came home on Sunday night, because, of course, my stepson had to go to school next day. I'm trying very hard not to accidentally say names here. And So my ex settled himself at the desktop computer, probably messaging her, which was something else he wasn't supposed to be doing in the house. But like that man ever listened to anything. I knew better. Anyway, he was settling himself down at my desktop computer, mind you. Though, did I let him take that? No, I can't remember. I don't think so. I can't remember. Anyway, he's sitting at the computer. There's a bookcase right next to the computer. Not 5 minutes, like he came in, sat down stuff, did whatever, and sat down. Not 5 minutes after he sat in that chair, my cat Tiger walked over to that bookcase, which happened to be his bookcase he was taking with him because it was something his grandparents had given us. And turned around at the bottom of that bookcase, lifted that tail, and just sprayed all over that bookcase, staring at him dead in the eye. Like, y'all, I thought I was gonna have to leave the house. I was wanted to laugh so hard. I wanted to laugh so hard. Like he was looking at him and like, man, you were ruining the vibe around here. You do not need to be here. Like, it was so funny. But I had to act mad at him, right? Like, I had to act like, because obviously he shouldn't be doing that, but it was kind of like that bad kitty, and then, and off another room, good boy, good boy. Like, I seriously think he could sense that it was upsetting to me. I really do. One of the funniest things, my vet gets the, when we talk about cats, and she said, people and experts say all the time that cats aren't vengeful and cats don't retaliate. She's like, that's bull. And so that's my favorite story to tell when we have those discussions, because yeah, I agree, I know better. And anyway, so they had to move out February, March. I just couldn't take it anymore. Tried to continue to see my stepson and spend time with him, but, or my ex stepson, but because the divorce went final in March that year, and that was 2011. And I just couldn't. It was too hard. I was just thinking of the rest of his life, and I was thinking, birthdays, graduations, big events. He's gonna want his birth mom there, who, that's a whole another video. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And his new girlfriend, and then his ex stepmother, and he would constantly feel like, because none of these three would probably get along, and so he would constantly feel like he had to stay loyal to people, and I just didn't want to do that to him. And I didn't know how many, for all I knew, my ex was going to have a revolving door of women coming in he was dating. He cannot be alone for anything. And so well, like, I had any right to say that at that point in time, because that had been a big problem of mine. um but anyway, so that all went through. So I was still doing school. I was still going to finish, do my student teaching. I had to take out a bunch of loans because I had to quit my job that last semester to student teach. Don't get me started on that either. Oh, here, I think I'm picking out the pencils for the background. So the rest of this time is going to be spent on the background. So that was, I was single there for close to a year. I dated some. I used Match.com back then. Have some really funny stories about that maybe I'll tell at some point in time, but we're running short on time here. So, dated a few, even started dating someone that I had dated in high school. That was, should have seen some red flags. Fortunately, that corrected itself very quickly, and I avoided, like, what probably would have been an even worse mistake than my second marriage. And not that I would have gotten that far, but like, he was very mentally not well, and it just, I changed the locks immediately when that fell apart, and to this day I still like dodging a bullet. Anyway, went on a few dates, have some fun stories about that, but for the most part I stayed single. Got kind of serious with somebody at the end of the year. However, that and right about the time I was taking all my teaching exams and was getting ready to student teach, had been dating that guy for a couple months, really thought something would come out of that, and he wasn't ready for a relationship, and so he panicked, had a moment where he's like, well, I just can't imagine us getting married and da da da. And I'm like, dude, we've been dating a month. Like, chill. And so I was like, look, it's obvious you're not ready for a relationship, and that's fine. So we'll just go our separate ways. And it was sad, but like, whatever. So while I had been dating that year, I had um, come across on Facebook a friend of mine that I had met in college years ago. So I used to go to Western Kentucky University. That was where I was going to get my undergrad in computer information systems. Well, when my first husband had to go, he graduated a year early, moved to Owensboro for a job. I ended up moving with him, and I transferred to a private college up there called Kentucky Wesleyan University. And, oh, that was funny. School wise, that was a terrible decision. Like, I really should have just sucked it up, drove, and stayed at Western. I would have gotten a much better education that remaining year. However, it's funny how life does you. And it's a good thing I had done that, because I had to take another science class because they had different requirements. So I had to take chemistry class my senior year. And I became friends with the guy that sat in the seat in the next row from me. And he was kind of like me, well, a lot more introverted and shy than I was, but I didn't know anybody there. I pretty much stayed to myself. I didn't have a lot of friends because all my friends were my husband's friends that I had become friends with, because I didn't have any independent thoughts for myself at the time. But his name was Brent. He became my only friend. That was just me. We constantly were lab partners in the class, and we became really good friends. And so we even had to do a music appreciation class. We were able to go to the Owensboro Symphony for extra credit. And I was engaged at the time. My fiance, my first husband, would joke that I was going on my dates with this guy because we'd go to the symphony. My ex had no interest. He listened to Eminem and Bare Naked Ladies. That was his level of music appreciation. I listened to neither. It just, no. Anyway, we in some ways we were similar. In some ways we were just so very different. But once we graduated, though, our friendship kind of fell apart because we weren't around each other all the time. And then I moved to Tennessee. I was gone for, I don't know, years, and we lost touch. Well, I saw him on Facebook, or maybe he saw me. I can't remember. Maybe I think I sent him a friend request. And I was just like, again, hey, this was my friend, so I want to reach out to him and see how he's doing. And so I messaged him, and he messaged me back, and he's like, oh, I said, I don't know if you remember me, but he goes, oh, of course I remember you. He said, I actually had a bit of a crush on you back then. And I was like, oh, that's cute. So I thought that was funny. But we chatted a little bit here and there if we both happened to be online, but it was very casual. Then I think it was around Thanksgiving. It was while I was still casually dating that one guy. I had to stay up late for an email. I did retail email, and there was a big email they always sent on Black Friday at the time. And I had to stay up till 3 or 4 a.m. to send it because they were having site issues. So I had a pot of coffee on, and I was up in the middle of the night. Well, Brent was online in the middle of the night. So he actually kept me company while I was waiting on all this stuff to happen. And that's how we really just started talking, just casually at that point. And then around January, we got to talking more and more. After that fell apart with that one dude, I was like, wasn't any plan on it. We just were talking and talking. And then in February, we were kind of like, hey, maybe there's something to this. And so we set up a date for him to come down because he still lived in Owensboro, which is about a 2 hour drive from me. And so he was going to come down. We went to, I think it was like Texas Roadhouse or something. And then we went to a Lewis Black concert. Had a great time. And he ended up staying overnight down here so he wouldn't have to like drive back that night or whatever. And we just started, at that point it was still considered talking, I guess. And the big thing was, and this was what I was talking about a couple weeks ago, was like, I was like, okay, well, when you come down here, I have 11 cats. And I still had 11 at that point. I was really fortunate in that for about 10 years there, I didn't have a single cat. Well, let's see. Zumi passed away, what was it, 2010. That was a year, and we had just lost Pepper a few months before. So it went from 2010, went about 6 or 7 years with all the cats staying healthy. Very fortunate during that time. And I was student teaching at this time, and but I was like, look, I have 11 cats, and they're not going anywhere. And I know it's a lot. That was what I was telling people when I was dating. I was like, let me be very clear. I understand 11 cats is a lot. If you don't want to subscribe to that, I completely understand. However, they are important to me and they will not be going anywhere. So it's a lot to sign on for, I know, and I'm warning you that now so that this does not become a problem later. And I, was nervous. He would be like, no, not for me. Would have understood, but would have been disappointed. But he signed on for it. To this day, I'm still shocked. Yeah, so therefore, that was 2012. Graduated, couldn't find a teaching job, went to work at another retail company doing emails for about 6, 7 months, hated it, ended up getting that remote job I kept for about 9 years. And I was honestly, I was dating and we were going back and forth. Like I would go down there one weekend to drive up to Owensboro and he'd drive down here. We did that on and off for, see, that was 2012, about 2 years. And it was a lot of driving, but we both wanted to be sure. Like I had already went through it twice, and I was like, and I went into this assuming we'd never get married because he was kind of iffy on the subject of marriage just due to reasons, and he had never been married, and I was like, you know what, I've sucked so much at my marriages that if we just were in a long-term relationship, I'd be totally cool with that. And so I was like, I told him, I said, if you ever want to get married, you're going to have to bring it up because I'm not going to bring it up. And so, and we, like I said, it worked out because we enjoyed each other's company and we complement each other well, but we weren't dependent on each other, if that makes any sense. Like he had his own job, his own hobbies, his own things to do, and same with me. So like I learned how to be independent in a relationship, like be my own person and still be in a good relationship. So that, I guess, is why we work so well together. So was talking about it after a couple years, he decided it would be best and cheapest to move down here just because the payments on my house were a lot cheaper. It was a lot bigger house. Ended up getting his job converted to a work from home job, moved down here. Things were clucking along fine until 2000, for about a year, and or a little under a year. And I was considering running for city council. and had met some friends around here, got really involved in the city. They had some people resign, so I was going to go put my name in for city council. And we were out driving one day, and I was driving. He still doesn't like riding around here. A little more familiar with the town as long as you're on the big roads. If you go on the small roads, he gets confused. But we were just driving around, and I was joking because I was like, I still had where my my divorce documents had where I go back to my maiden name. I still hadn't changed everything to my maiden name yet. So I was like, I don't know if I should run as married name or if I should put my name in as maiden name. And he goes, well, why don't we, you could just put your name in as his name. And I was like, and driving, that probably wasn't the best thing to say while driving because about run me off the road. I was like, was that a marriage proposal? And he affirmed it was, and I was like, really? And I was like, well, yeah, sure, of course, and so that was the best way it could have been done. Honestly, it was the best thing for us. We're not ceremony type people, I guess you could say. We're very casual, and so that was the best way to, maybe not while I was driving, but like I wasn't, if he wanted to get married, I expected it to be a discussion and not like a ring and the standard engagement thing. I went through that. It's like I went through that. I went through a big fancy church wedding. I went through a city hall wedding. I was like, I don't want any of that. I'm done with that. I'm done with the fancy, proposals. Oh, here real quick. Of course, I'm coming in with some stickles. I used Stardust because I wanted some nice little sparkle on the whipped cream here, just to give it a little pizzazz. I felt pretty good about my highlights on this one. Usually when I add in the white line highlights, I just don't like how I do them, and I think I did them pretty well on this one. So, so we decided to get married, and I wanted to get married on the beach. You look at me, I'm so pale, you're like, really? The beach? And I did. I just wanted to sneak away and I guess elope is what the kids call it. And we did not. I was like, of course I told my parents and my brother, and they're like, yeah, we're happy for you, but we're okay if you guys want to go to Florida and get married. My parents are probably like, we've been through this. We paid for the first wedding. We don't need to come to this one. We're happy for you, but it's okay. It's whatever you want is the way my parents acted. And I was like, okay, are you going to tell your parents? He's like, no, I'm not going to tell them until we actually get married. Oh gosh, because I guess his mom wasn't going to be too keen on us just running off and eloping, and he didn't want to go through that headache. And okay, so before I continue this, we are. Oh, yeah, I messed that one up. I think I kind of fixed it. So before I continue here's the finished picture. The lighting's a little yucky, but I couldn't get a good picture with my camera, so I love how this turned out. It was real cute. The Luminance pencils did a great job, I feel like, with the shading. And I'm not thrilled about the background, but like, it's alright. I actually thought this turned out quite cute. I really like the shading and the look of the chipmunks. I feel like that, especially the browns and the brown ochres and stuff I used, turned out really nice. So, very cute picture, very appropriate for the topics we're discussing. But anyway, so we had a couple months. We wanted to do it in May. I wanted to do it right between our birthdays. So his is the 13th, mine is the 20th. So I settled on the 16th. And We, within a couple months, booked a trip to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Got a ceremony set up on the beach at like 10 a.m. that morning. And I ended up wearing a dress. And I think I'll post a picture here. Let me look at the timestamp so I'll remember. Yep. And in the dress I'm wearing, or in the picture, my dress was this really neat kind of islandy looking dress. It's not pure white. I just couldn't do that. But it's white and it's got flowers on it, and it actually looks pretty good on my pale self. And he just did a white shirt and khakis. Like, again, we were just extremely casual about it. We drove down there. His brother-in-law and his wife, his brother-in-law and his wife were lived near Fort Lauderdale, so they came in. They were his side that showed up, and then my best friend at the time was my side, my witness that showed up. And yeah, we snuck down there with basically my parents and a few friends knowing, and my brother knowing, and we got married on the beach. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, where the sun was directly in our eyes, and for pale, blue-eyed people, that was the worst thing. Is it was, my eyes watered so bad. It was terrible. But I'll show some pictures here, hopefully, of us, some different pictures from it. It was so much fun. Loved it. We had a guy, so everybody at the beach, because of course we picked the open spot on the beach, but there's still people around, right? We had all these people applauding. This guy over here in this banana hammock was extremely enthusiastic. In retrospect, Brent really wanted to include him in our pictures, and I'm kind of glad we didn't. Now I probably would have said sure, why not, but back then I'm like, hey, I would like some nice pictures, so maybe not, maybe just one, right? Kind of wish we had done that. That would have been fun. But like, went out to a nice place, had a small little wedding cake. It was perfect. It was exactly what it was. Low key. We were both kind of introverted people. We didn't want a lot of people at the wedding. We didn't want to go through a bunch of planning. I'd already been through all that before. I just wanted something simple like that, and just us and a few people we could really care about. And I would have loved for my parents and brother to be there. That was about the only thing I was missing. But other than that, it was perfect. And surprisingly, his mom did not come unglued when he told her. She was thrilled. She was mad. She made it known off the phone. But she seemed thrilled. So I was like, to this day, I am of the notion that his family is his family, and how he interacts with them, and how he tells them news and this and that. That is all for him to do. I do not subscribe to family politics. I'm not going to get involved. I do the same with my family. It all works out great. So, um, anyway, so that was 2015. So this year will be 7 years? 8 years. Am I right? It is 2015, right? Oh, Lord. Dates. It's 2015. So it'll be 8 years, I guess. Pretty close to our 10 years. And yeah, so we're still here. He still works the same remote job he's worked for years. And still kicking. I did say if I got married a third time, that was it. My name will forever be the name it is now. I have had it changed so many times that anytime I have to go back to somewhere that used to know me as one of my previous names, it really becomes an ordeal. So, so it's not changing again. We're done with that. And I've joked that if this one didn't work out, I'd just be single for the rest of my life, probably. But no, as far as I know, I don't have to worry about that. I guess for us, the joke is third time's the charm, and this and that. I guess it really proved right for me. And the thing that worked out is, had things been different back then, and somehow we met and started dating back then, we weren't either one of us were in the point in our lives where I think it would have lasted, just because we were so different at that point. But like when we actually started dating and stuff, like we were actually both ready for relationships. So it worked out for the best. And I just, a lot of times people look at, and this is a good lesson, I guess, is just a lot of times you look at your past, and I look at all those, all those marriages. So many. I look at all those marriages and the dumb decisions, some of the dumb decisions I made, and I'm like, I know I'm tempted to say I wish I hadn't done that, but had I done anything different, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at now. So, as you can tell, I did fully determine that I just didn't want kids. I was okay with my stepson, but honestly, 4 years with him was very challenging. I felt like I put in my time, and I definitely didn't. I think if I had stayed single, I might have considered fostering or adopting an older kid. One of my friends has done that, and I think that's amazing, because a lot of times older kids get overlooked. I don't handle young babies at all well. It's just not going to happen. So I decided to not have kids, and don't regret that one bit. Looking at the state of the world right now, I just think it would, no. So, which my husband's very not wanting kids, more so than I am. So, no worries there. But yeah, it's just been us living our lives as best as we can, still in the midst of COVID and everything else. And yeah, like I said, it's been great, and I just thought it would be fun to sit here and kind of talk about all that aspect of my life, just because I don't know if I've ever gone into that much detail. I may have in a previous video, and I honestly forgot. So if you've heard all this before, I apologize. But it's been a hot minute since I did it, so figured it was time to tell the story again. And he keeps saying he hates the cats, but it's tongue in cheek. He loves the cats, and a lot of the cats love him. Scamper and Sidonia and Reef Sheep in particular love laying in his lap. They refuse to be lap cats for me. Just absolutely not. Scamper started laying on me at night, which is unusual, but during the day they will not. No, it's all him, and they will even fight each other to lay on him. And so he's got some that prefer him over me, and I think he would like fewer cats just because it's a lot financially to deal with. But like, he's well aware I'm going to have cats in my life for the rest of my life. So he's on board with it. A lot's changed in that I've got my chronic illness issues to deal with now. It's hard for me to do a lot physically, especially with as much work and stuff I'm doing right now. He keeps up with a lot of the cooking and the house. I keep up with most of the cats. That's kind of our agreement. And, I couldn't ask for a better husband, really and truly. I had to go through, well, I don't want to say frogs, because like I said, my first husband wasn't a bad guy. It just wasn't right for us. But just had to go through some trials before I found the right one. And I'm grateful for him every day. So, especially right now with this. Now I'm going to start tearing up. But as hard as things have been lately, it's hard because, used to be felt a lot more independent and a lot more sure of myself. And ever since I got sick, a lot of that insecurity has come back because, I just don't feel like I'm pulling my weight sometimes, and not being scared of not being a good spouse again, because I never really I went through some therapy, but I never really unpacked the end of my second marriage. So it's probably something I need to do, because of course in the back of my head I always worry that I'm just going to do too many wrong things, and at this point I shouldn't be worrying about that stuff anymore. But, it's still there. It's still trauma from earlier relationships, and I do, everybody's a work in progress, I guess, and so I still have some things I need to work on. It's just right now finding the time to do it and trying to navigate. We just can't seem to catch a break here. It seems like pretty much since COVID started. It's been hard on everybody. I was listening. By the way, Lisa's Coloring Corner, I do want to put a shout out there. She's really got me through here lately. Some awesome listening to her coloring chats. Where I've needed to be distracted, it's been nice listening to her, but like, I listen to her, I've been listening to Colorfully Optimistic, and, the thing is, a lot of us are going through a lot. I'm not going to speak for them and what their, experiences are, but, like, a lot of us are going through so much right now, and it's so heartbreaking. Like, I just want things to ease up for everybody. Like, I feel like we've all just, and things don't feel like they're getting any better anytime soon. I think I heard Lisa say that 2023 so far has not been a good year, and I was agreeing wholeheartedly with her. Like, it's been a tough one, and so I appreciate y'all as well, listening to all of this. I will quickly say, I know I've been just going on and on, with a finished picture just sitting here. But I will say quickly, like, it has not helped this weekend. Scamper's been acting a little weird. She has seemed like she has a little more weakness, like in the back of her legs. A little more wobbly. I've tried backing off the gabapentin just to make sure it's not that. Like, I'm worried that maybe she might have another stroke, or maybe there's something going on that's causing the weakness in her legs that's not gabapentin related. And the thing is, I don't know if there's anything we can do, because of the potential things it could be. I'm still going to contact my vet in the morning and let her know, but to be quite honest, I just don't think there's going to be much we can probably do. But it just bothers me because I thought, we would have more time with her, and I just don't know. Now that I've backed off the gabapentin, she's walking more solid. However, even though I backed off just a little, she does seem a little more uncomfortable. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Again, I'm just going to update my vet tomorrow, see if she has any suggestions, and we're just going to have to watch her. Sidonia's doing well. She's actually perked up quite a bit. She's looking a little frail, just given circumstances, kind of like Scamper, but she's eating pretty well. Her and Scamper get weighed tomorrow. And she's just been up and about and, seemingly doing well. The prednisone, I feel like, has really helped her appetite. So, yeah, that's been it. Like I said, I just worried a lot about Scamper. I don't know. I'm worried there's going to be a stroke. She's going to have a stroke that winds up paralyzing her, and there's not going to be anything we can do, and I don't know, just trying to watch her. She seemed like she did okay last night. She seemed really wobbly before bed, but then she was fine last night, and she's seemingly a little better today. She's eating well, she's just quiet, and it's just unusual. So I don't know what's going on. But anyway, I thought I would give a quick update here at the end, after the story. So I will be back Tuesday with some new book flip throughs. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, I thought the picture turned out adorable, and I guess I'll see you guys Tuesday. Bye for now.